Hello and welcome back. The theme of today's lesson is the extension up, a step in an up to now unknown area. In difference to the extension back, where just the first finger moved, here the whole hand needs to move, including the thumb, except the first finger, which is the only one staying in the normal first position. Seen from the extension back, the whole hand moves, all fingers, including the thumb, exactly one finger further. Where the 4 was comes now the 3, and the whole hand moves as a unit. I put my hand where the extension back is, and now I put my pointer finger where the 4 is. And that's where now the 3 will be. So I shift the whole hand, that the 3 is where the 4 was, on the note D on the A string. And here is a sharp, and this is the area where we up to now have never played. That is on the A string, the D sharp, here the G sharp, the C sharp, and on the C string the F sharp, which is very common. This is exactly what the first exercise, number 56A, is about. After having played the extension back, the whole hand moves so that the 3 moves where the 4 was. Now I play number 56A with the extended position back, 4 to 1, then shifts to the extension up. The 4 is replaced with a 3. So here comes the 3. I will play with the repeat, shifting at the repeat mark back with the 4 and all fingers and thumb keeping the stretch. I count 6 beats in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The same on the D string. And now to exercise number 56B. In this exercise I compare the normal unextended first position to the extended position up. Throughout the whole line the first finger does not move. It stays where it is, put. All other fingers, plus the thumb, shift at the bar line or when the first finger is played, prepare to stretch. So at the bar line or prepared, the one stays and all other fingers, including the thumb, move up. If the thumb doesn't move up, the 2 will not be in tune and the 4 will probably be too flat. All extensions, to look ahead, look virtually the same. Also, when you advance into higher positions, the stretch is always between 1 and 2. So if we go here, it's always between 1 and 2. The thumb goes always with the 2, is linked to it. I put a lot of emphasis on this detail because quite some cello methods have been published deriving from violin methods, and the extensions are explained wrongly, that you extend just the 4. I got students who couldn't get rid of this habit of just overstretching 4 and remained unable to play fast passages in tune. So virtually, theoretically, you can actually distort your hand and play here, but it will never be fast, it will never be completely in tune. And it's quite easy to play in tune and fast if you have the thumb in the right position. So number 56B. And I count 3 beats in. I compare first, like you heard, that the 4 is in tune. So I compare the 4 with the open string, and the notes are both Ds. If it's out of tune, sounds dreadful, is in tune. And now, 1, 2, 3. And on the D string. I play the second line one time more and I turn my cello. And you can see, hopefully, so. So. It might first seem a bother, but you get used to it. And the more advanced you get, the less the thumb pushes and the more flexible it will get. And now to number 57, the scale in D major. We played before a scale in D major, number 8, a long time ago, but only the higher octave on D and A string. This upper octave is here unchanged and belongs to the scale as well. But the lower octave starts with the first finger on C string, the low D, and the hand is extended throughout the lower octave until we reach the open D string. There the thumb relocates to the unextended position. So on the lower octave, on the C string and the D string extension, then the hand goes for the upper octave in the normal position as we played it in number 8. D major has 2 sharps. F sharp, this was an F, and we need F sharp, and C sharp on the G string. On the top octave, it just means instead of 2, we play 3. But in the lower octave, the 4th finger is usually F and C natural, need to be F sharp and C sharp. So the 1 remains, then the thumb plus 2, 3, 4 shift, so the 2 will play where the 3rd finger was. Once we reach the open D string, we move back to the unextended position, and when we go back, when we go play the octave back, we need to remember to extend again. In my experience, a note to listen out for is the last note, the D, when we come down. And we need to remember to stretch it back, and it's so common that students play too sharp. If you have a look, have a listen to this one note. The D major scale here can be played in the rhythm as it's written, but I wrote it mainly in this rhythm to have visually a clear image where the key note is. And it's written as a minim or half note, and all other notes written as crotchets or quarter notes. A good warm-up until a new scale appears is the first bowing. Every note has 3 beats, as we did it in the C scale, enough time to produce a good sound and trying to predict where the next finger goes, so it will be perfectly in tune. If not, it's best to glide there as quickly as possible and correct. Playing the note 5 times does not help. Correcting and keeping the rhythm is a permanent solution for playing perfectly in tune. There's a story. The famous cellist Pablo Casals was once asked in an interview, he was 85 years old, why he played never out of tune. And he laughed and said, "Oh, I do often." And the interviewer said, "I never noticed even one note only slightly being out of tune." And Casals said, "Haha, I'm very good in correcting very quickly." So that's highest professional advice. correct here and now quickly and move on. Don't hesitate. And here the scale in 3/4 notes, a dotted minim. Before I play the 1, the thumb goes already in the extended position for the 2, so it will be in the right spot. And I announce I will play on the way up a few mistakes, which I will quickly correct, but in speed. And on the way down, I will play a note 5 times, and that's what happens. Didn't work. It's better. Stretching back. We usually are able to play in tune by what's called tone memory. That means we keep the last few notes or certain important notes in mind, and the next notes relate to that pitch. Once we start playing erratically, out of tune notes in between, this tone memory gets confused, fades away, and we get a bit lost where we actually are. So trying to fix them quickly and go on as soon as possible in the correct timing is the best way. Even if you go a little bit up and down, but let's do it fast so we can remember the context. Now pattern B, slowly to slurred. When I put a finger down slowly, it might start with a blur, like particularly in a slur, it might happen. What I do about is I move this finger fast down, or rather I hammer a bit or drop it, like lift it even a tiny bit up and let it come down, but I don't hammer it really down and stay down. It's like if you use a hammer, it sometimes bounces a little back, and that's what it happened with the finger. And this finger comes a bit looser, which is actually well, because then the whole hand doesn't get tense. Now I play pattern B. 1, 2, 3, 4. Once you get more advanced and your fingers get more flexible, then cellists, or particularly professional cellists, pull a little bit, like they're not the same blurb doesn't happen when we move the finger off slowly. We can do it faster, or we pull it a bit. And you can do it even without a bow. We do it only a bit, that's enough. It's not easy, but if you sometimes do it over a year or 2 years, it will just develop. I would not overdo it. It will come. Now comes bowing number C, and it's per bar, per measure, one bow, which is more or less the same as number B, but a longer bow. And now pattern D. I have some students who always warm up with that pattern. They just love it. And it's actually a very good pattern because every single new note needs to be hammered or slightly hammered. And it's a very regular and controlled way to warm up. Let's play it through. And now to pattern E. It's best not to start with it, but very good to play it as a second or third pattern. Because when you start with it, the hand is stiff, and it's not a benefit to play scales when they are stiff. So it's very good for hammering, and it's good kind of falling on the new finger and releasing the finger that you don't use anymore a little bit. I play it through, and when you see you have at the end of the bow a little bit left, just use this bow because then you don't get stuck in the up bow. Like. When I play this pattern, I always play it twice. And the second time is usually better. And now a few words to the sharps, kind of music theory, but not too serious. Sharps and flats are called accidentals. They're always written in the same order. And if you look back or look at other music, you'll always see the first sharp is always F sharp, written in front of the note F. That indicates just that note is a sharp. So if you see any sharp, the 4 on the C string must be extended. It's the first sharp. If it's the only sharp, it indicates the key of G major or E minor. And usually you can identify the key, if it's major or minor, by looking at the last note of the piece. Usually with one sharp, it's a G for G major or an E for E minor. The second sharp is always a C sharp, the one on the G string. It indicates D major or B minor. And again, the last note of the piece or song usually indicates which one it is. Like the canon in D finishes with the D. So it's in D major and not in B minor. The last sharp of all sharps indicated for a piece, doesn't matter if it's 3 or 4 or 5 or whatever, is always the leading note of the relating major key, the semitone under the key. That means if you have an F sharp, it's the only one, then the key note is just one finger above. If you have here a C sharp and it's the last sharp, like in D major, then the next note up is a D. Look at more complicated keys. If there are 5 sharps, the last one is an A sharp, which is, here's an A. The sharp is always one finger higher, so it's here 2, looks like a B flat. And the key note where it belongs to is a B. So the key is B major or 1.5 notes lower, the relative minor, G sharp minor. It will make gradually sense. Just remember, the order is always the same. The first sharp is always F sharp. Doesn't matter how many there are. As we're to play the sharps, there's an easy rule. 1 sharp stretch on the C string. 2 sharps, C string and G string. 3 sharps, C string, G string and D string. 4 sharps, all strings. So every sharp more, you have to stretch 1 string more. And that's for today. I say goodbye for now and see you again for next lesson, which is the bass part of the famous canon in D by Pachelbel. Goodbye for now.